So my kids and I have this thing that we like to do where we go on Disney Plus, like if we're trying to find something to watch, and instead of finding something to watch, we just watch trailers forever. It doesn't matter if they're trailers for shows and movies that we've already seen or ones that are upcoming. Our favorites are the ones that like really pique our interest, and we will legitimately watch them over and over and over again. And it got me thinking, students look at the way we open lessons and units the same way that my kids and I look at trailers. The gateway activity is basically the trailer for what's to come in the classroom. And if it falls flat, that's the one that we're not going to finish, right? Like we're not going to finish watching that trailer. I have already lost most of our students before we even start.
Which is why we care so much about it. And so one of our very favorite strategies that we want to share with you right now is a gateway activity using picture books. Picture books are the perfect little intro to big concepts and themes. They're engaging in a way that's unexpected. Here's a fun fact. We have a whole lesson ready made for you and absolutely free to download that uses the book Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And we use it to introduce the genre of dystopia and all of the big ideas within it. So if you've ever been in the market for tricking and deceiving your students with something that's really engaging and fun, this is the lesson for you. Every single time we use Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in the classroom, students are walking away intrigued. They're talking to each other. They're talking out the door about what happened in class. I mean, dreams really do come true. And they're thinking about what's coming the next day. All of these signs of a very successful gateway lesson.
And did we mention that the whole lesson is free? You can go and download it right now and come back to it whenever you are ready. Head to the show notes for this episode or go to shop.bravenewteaching.com/cloudy to download this lesson today. We can't wait to see how it works in your classroom. This episode is brought to you by Curriculum Rehab by us, the team here at Brave New Teaching. It is the first and only teacher PD of its kind, a course to help teachers like you by guiding you through creating your own personal framework for curriculum. You make it work for you, your students, and your unique situation because nobody else knows what the kiddos in your classroom need the way that you do. Curriculum Rehab takes all of the resources available to you, all of the lessons, the assessments, the activities, all of the texts, everything that could possibly be there for you, and it helps you organize what you actually need in order to attain your teaching objectives. These are the strategies that Amanda and myself have used in our own classrooms, have developed over very long years of teaching and figuring things out, combined together to create this framework and these strategies that we can guide you through. This course will give you the tools you need for a complete curriculum overhaul or to start from scratch. Wherever you are on that continuum, it does it all for you and with you on your timeline. So start today, do a little bit more in a couple of months, and then pick it up next summer. It's Teacher PD the way it should be on your own time. Head to curriculumrehab.com/course for more information, or just head to the show notes for this episode. We cannot wait to see you there. It's finally time to take control of what goes on in your own classroom and create the curriculum of your dreams. All right, let's get back into the show. Well, hello, and welcome back to Brave New Teaching, and welcome to part 2 of our interview with author Aimee Phan, who is the author of the newly released The Lost Queen, which is a YA historical fantasy, which is set in contemporary California and features 2 high school students as the main characters who are actually like the reincarnation of these lost Vietnamese queens. And it's a really cool, first of all, the book itself is a really cool way to retell a myth and a legend with a fresh contemporary take. The author that we spoke with, Aimee Phan, is just a top-notch human. Like I said in last week's episode, we talked for so long, Amanda and I did with Aimee, that this is now a 2-part episode because she just had such great insight, and asking her about how she sees specifically this book, but just stories in general fitting into the classrooms of today with today's teenagers was so rich and lovely that we are very excited to bring you part 2 today. If you have not yet heard part 1, I highly suggest that you pause me right now, head back to that one and then come back over here. Yes, just hearing about this highly accomplished author, but then also just like highly insightful human, and how she brings stories to light and brings them in a way that is very accessible, especially for teenagers. That obviously, if you're here and listening to this and you're part of the Brave New Teaching community, you also value teenagers and young people and making sure that they experience a diversity of voices and perspectives, and that they get to see themselves in literature as well and see their loved ones and their friends and family. So highly, highly recommend you listen to the first part if you haven't. If you have, get ready, buckle up. Here comes the second part of our conversation with author Aimee Phan. Cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a high school teacher from Southern California.
Join us after the show and happy hour to extend your VNT experience with instant access to our resources, workshops, and courses.
Visit shop.bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to join us today. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. Well, speaking of various books in the genre, I would love to know what some of the title pairings you have imagined could go with The Lost Queen. I mean, very selfishly, because I would love to beef up more of my classroom list, but also just because now that we're talking about the story, I want, and we're getting it so clearly through your lens, what titles do you think would pair up nicely with, or even, parallel with your novel?
Sure. So what's really interesting, so when I was an undergrad at UCLA, and I remember I was doing a big project in one of my Asian American Studies classes about Asian American literature. And at the time, when I was an undergrad, and this was a while ago, there was only one Vietnamese American mainstream book published by a mainstream publisher in America, which was stunning and shocking. Now it has blown up with so many more Vietnamese American and Vietnamese diasporic writers, right? And it's all because we're coming into this new generation, of writers who have the opportunities to be able to create. We are writing as a consequence, as a benefit from all the hard work of the previous generation. And so Vietnamese American fantasy and Vietnamese fantasy, I think, is still a baby genre that's starting to emerge. So I think the books that really, I think, go alongside mine are the ones that I was inspired by to read and to understand. Like alongside the Joy Luck Club of Aimee Tan, The Importance of Storytelling, Maxine Hong Kingston's The Woman Warrior was so formational in allowing young Asian Americans to realize our stories are important and can be told. Phang Nguyen wrote a book, actually a very historical book with no fantasy. I would say it's a more faithful retelling of the Chung sisters, and that's called The Bronze Drum. Beth Nguyen wrote several memoirs, and those are more contemporary, about Vietnamese American life, which I think are beautiful. Viet Thanh Nguyen wrote The Sympathizer, which won a Pulitzer. And I think that book, more than any others, called out, I think, the marginalization of Vietnamese identities in American literature, and really called out for more Vietnamese American literature to come out that expressed more diasporic point of views, and that there's so much more storytelling that can happen within the Vietnamese communities than what we are getting. There was this idea that so much Asian American literature can be model minority literature, and it doesn't have to be, and that the stories can be much more complex and they can be much more defiant. And that's what I liked about it. So in a way, like Vietnamese American literature and the books that I'm mentioning kind of prepare readers for the fact that there are many other stories out there, many, many different ways of telling stories. I also think Vu Tran wrote a book called Dragonfish, which has a play on the noir that I think is really interesting. So it's disguised as this noir, but actually tells an incredibly moving story about the Vietnamese refugee experience and life in America. And also Julie Otsuka's Buddha in the Attic. Wonderful stories, I say, because it has a really interesting combination of narrators, and it's told in the It's told in the second person, which you don't think can be pulled off for the entire novel, but it does. And the you becomes really powerful because the you changes. And so I think these are really innovative ways to tell stories alongside, I think, The Lost Queen, and just giving permission to be able to do whatever you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to still, I think, especially for readers of high school age, they're realizing they can read whatever they want. They are not, in a way, like I think of my daughter. She's like, I have outgrown young adult literature, and not, no, actually, you haven't. But it's just this permission to be able to read whatever you want, and that you have the maturity and the ability to read everything. So those are just some of the ideas and suggestions I have. Not specifically fantasy, but just more like what are the common themes I think that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking too, Marie and I were talking before this interview. I love even like placing your story alongside some other retellings
Mm-hmm.
and looking at other stories that are retellings of legends of folklore. We talked with Diana Lopez a couple of summers ago about her retelling of some Latin American mythologies. Marie is reading Legend Born right now, which
Yeah.
is a King Arthur retelling. I think that and even like that to me would be a cool way to structurally talk about like the expected arc of a story, right? You kind of get from the classic and
Mhm.
then what a modern and contemporary author can do to upset that. That's kids love that, right? Because then they think like, ooh, we're going to study how the rules are broken. That would be kind of fun too.
It is. And it also allows them to see that stories are not static. Stories are, there's not just one. Just this idea that any kind of story that they think is a myth, that is an origin story, is a version of one person's telling,
Yeah.
and that it can change in so many ways. And I think a lot of readers and writers sometimes too don't believe that those details can always be changed. Like this idea of a faithful retelling, that there's only one version. And I think I knew when I started writing The Lost Queen what I knew about the Chung sisters. Like there wasn't that much literature based on them, right? When I was researching at the time, I was only finding paragraphs of them in larger Chinese historical texts, right? In Vietnamese texts. It was as if people were afraid to infuse more details because they didn't want to be wrong. And the thing is, storytelling belongs to the storyteller. It's their version. And so I had to give myself permission to really change the story and to be inspired and to throw in details and ideas that weren't there before, because that is what the original storytellers did too. It's not
Oh
like
yeah.
people, they were making things up too. And so you need to have permission to be able to change those things and to have the emotions are still resonant and true, and they're in there even if the details are different.
Kids do think everything is fixed.
No, they
And
do.
we are definitely to blame for that. But to tell them that it's not would be engagement level number one.
They're
Right.
absolutely dazzled by when like the limits that they can like see and understand get stretched beyond their like, and that sounds like it's exactly what books like yours do. Not that sounds like, that is exactly what books like yours do. And I'm wondering then, when a teacher or a student or a just person picks up your book and reads The Lost Queen all the way through, what is it, if you can pinpoint one thing or more, that
Mhm.
they walk away with? What do you hope that that is?
That is a really good question. I'm coming back to the theme of believing in yourself and
Mm-hmm.
believing in your power and realizing that it does come with a lot of sacrifices. I think in many ways, my main character is afraid of hurting herself and afraid of hurting others and disappointing others, and being able to make her own choices and stand by it and really believing that what she is doing is right. I was also writing this book when my daughter was going through a pretty tough adolescence through the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
watching my daughter, who was such a confident, excited, passionate, fearless young girl. And then watching how adolescence, essentially puberty and the pandemic, like destroyed that confidence. It
Yeah.
decimated it.
Oh, yeah.
And she had to rebuild herself. And she did. And she's still doing it. it's incredibly humbling to watch that process. And I think in many ways, this is what the book is doing. It's what happens when you feel like you have been destroyed and how do you rebuild? Because it feels in many ways so insurmountable. And I think Jolie does that in this book. And she continues because there's a sequel to this book that's being planned. And
I was
and
going to
that
say, and that comes out when?
it's coming out. It is being written as we speak.
Okay.
So
Not 12
hopefully.
years though. No way. We're not going to let you do it, Aimee.
Oh, not I'm amazed how fast young adult book writers write. It's like, how do you do? They're just like so quickly. Like, I've got this trilogy and duology plan. I'm like, but it's taken me 12 years to write this one.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, they write so fast, and it is definitely a skill that I am learning to adapt to. But yeah, so like I want young readers to realize that they have the power in them, and that the shackles that they think that are on them, the prisons that they think are on them in their environments of middle school or high school or
Mhm.
social media or Instagram or TikTok,
Yeah.
they can be broken down. I mean, when TikTok was banned for that magical day, remember that day?
Yeah, it was like 30 hours. Yeah.
I know. It was pretty fantastic because my daughter mourned it, and she was one of the unlucky few who actually deleted it off her phone. And so when it came back, she couldn't get it back. She was like, wait,
Oh,
you know? And so we had this period where she didn't have it for like a
right.
month and a half, and it was great. She still, of course, got it through like the computer, but she wasn't getting her fix all the time,
Yeah, the constant. Yeah.
constant fix. And I understand, and I'm not here to say social media is super evil.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree.
but it's had a profound effect on their self-esteems,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
their
And
identities.
on so many different aspects. Absolutely.
And I have to have faith that they're going to figure out who the person, it's like the Wizard of Oz, like
Yep.
when you find out who the wizard is, he's just this little, insecure person, you know,
Mhm.
behind the screen. And they don't have as much power as you think. And then they realize they can stand up on their own. I hope the book does that for some kids, right? For some readers, like
Yeah.
that you can stand up. You have a lot more power than you think. Like Jolie is standing up against incredible forces in the book, and we watch her as the forces grow and multiply and seem to get larger and larger. Like that's my favorite moment in the book when you think a character is down and is going to be defeated by and then they realize, no, I am a lot stronger than you think I am.
Yes. Okay, so maybe this is one and the same, but if we're going to wrap up here with one final kind of raw moment. If there was one thing, one piece of advice or one statement you could give that you wish every English teacher, every teacher just knew, what would you say to them? What do you wish they knew?
I remember every nice thing that every English teacher has said to me. I remember in fourth grade, my teacher, Mr. Rewald, the best English teacher I ever remember, saying to me, "You're not going to have a lot of teachers say this to you because they're tired and busy, but you are a writer and you are good. And I want you to remember that for the rest of your life."
Oh,
And I
that's amazing.
It is amazing. And it means so much. Even if the kid doesn't look like they care, they
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
They remember every compliment. They remember every good thing you say, and they remember every bad thing you say.
Yeah.
So your words matter to all those kids. Praise just means so much because they're hearing so much negativity. They're taking in so much that they need those seeds of hope to be able to keep writing and to keep, even if they don't write, even if they, but just knowing that they have that potential and it's not going to go away.
I'm not crying. You're crying. It's fine.
Well, no, I just think of like, I hope my kids have, I mean, they will, right? Like there are some incredible educators out there who are all just trying to do their best. And so I think
Absolutely.
hearing your words will help, even just like for today, just help for today. And then remember and help for tomorrow. Like it's all those
Mhm.
little pieces of help that push us to keep going.
Yes, absolutely.
Aimee, so tell us where our teachers can find you if they wanted to follow up with maybe having you on for a Zoom in their class, or if they wanted to see when your next book tours are. What is the best way for our teachers to get a hold of you in the future?
I am on social media. I'm trying really hard. I'm on, they can find me on Instagram at Aimee Phan Writes. I'm also trying to build a TikTok. My daughter is helping me. Oh my gosh, TikTok is crazy. She's trying to help me create these reels and they're dizzying and she can do it in like 30 seconds. And I'm like so amazed by that. And yes, I have a website that is in the works. I think it's going to be Aimee Phan, some version of aimeephan.com or Aimee Phan Writes that will be available. And Penguin Random House has an author page for me and I'm easily findable.
All right. Have you ever done classroom talks or anything like that?
I have. I've done
And
it
I
for
know you have your own classroom, but with
yes.
a
Sure.
a
Yes.
K-12 classroom?
My 2 previous books, especially with my first book, We Should Never Meet, it was a collection of interlinked stories about Operation Baby Lift, which was the emergency evacuation of these orphans before the end of the Vietnam War. I found that teachers really like to teach certain stories. In short stories, it's digestible for kids. They can read it. And what was neat about the collection is like it works as a novel, but it also works as standalone stories. And then they were told from different points of view. And so I often teach that book and get invited to talk to classrooms about that. So yes, I love talking to students.
That's really cool.
They always teach me more about writing. They always make me feel so smart because they have such great, insightful questions and things to say about the book. And I love every discussion that I have. And that book, We Should Never Meet, it's like 20 years old now. And yet I feel like I'm always grateful when I get a classroom request for that book.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I cannot wait for teachers everywhere to hear this interview and to get their hands on your book, which I'm assuming can be found everywhere, pretty much everywhere you buy books. Yes? Okay.
It's going to be available as a traditional book, an audiobook. I'm super excited. I got to help pick out the narrator for that. And that was like thrilling to be able to experience that too. Widely available. And thank you for this podcast. I am going to tell everyone I know about it too.
Oh, thank you.
As you know, so many teachers are just feeling really overwhelmed by, you've read those articles, honestly, about students who are not reading, coming to college and they've never read a novel. It's frightening. And then with the dawn of Chat GPT and AI, there's so many challenges. And teachers need resources to feel like you can still go into the classroom and do this.
Yeah, it's pretty wild out there. Yeah, it's definitely wild.
Thank you. Don't burn out, please.
Yeah, no, we're trying. We're trying not to. I know, as I'm like, our listeners can't see that I'm like scratching my own face off. Oh boy.
Well, that's what we're definitely trying to do, that to be a support to teachers in these crazy times. But we couldn't do it without wonderful authors coming to bring your energy, bring your stories to the table. I mean, that's part of one of our solutions, right? Is like doing that work, getting the books to teachers this way, right? Like teachers don't necessarily have time to vet and find. And so you are a huge part of that, Aimee, and we're just so grateful for your time today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, friends, we will make sure to post everything on the show notes, all of the different ways that you can get a hold of Aimee, maybe have her come and talk to your class. How cool would that be? And yeah, make sure you check out the show notes because that's where all of that will be. And thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in Happy Hour and the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great